Perfect. All right, Renee, if you're there, you can go ahead and lower the music and we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. And I'll turn my video on for a minute, although I suspect it might go off soon. But my name is Andrea Monroe, and I'm the Associate Director of the Service Learning Institute. And welcome to what used to be the in-person Community Partner Fair and is now C-POW, Community Partner Outreach Week, all done by Zoom, in which we give, hopefully made it easier for students and community partners to find each other, get to know each other, via Zoom as well as online, which will happen most of the way. Before we jump into the PowerPoint, I want to start by just introducing, asking SLI staff to introduce themselves so you'll know a little bit about the service learning community. So if you work for Service Learning Institute and are on, and there's a lot of people on this call, so it's going to be hard for me to call on people. So I'm going to hope that people kind of jump in. But if you could introduce yourself by your name, what you do for the Service Learning Institute, and anything else you want to add about this wonderful world of remote service and getting started this spring. So again, I'm Andrea Monroe, Associate Director of Service Learning Institute. I'm going to kick it over to Seth Pollack.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to C-POW. I'm Seth Pollack, the director at Service Learning Institute. I'm also a faculty. I'm teaching an upper division service learning course on civic issues, and mostly been working with our liberal studies and College of Education people around the K-12 remote service learning program. And we'll be introducing that at noon today and again at 2 o'clock. So I'm glad you're here, and it feels a little bit less crazy than it did in the fall, but it still feels pretty crazy. But we were able to get over almost 1,500 students placed with 300 plus organizations last fall. So we're hoping it'll be equally as successful this spring. Thanks. And I'll pass it to Renee. I see him right there.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Buenos dias. My name is Rene Casas. I'm the Community Partnerships and Evaluation Specialist for the Service Learning Institute. Some of y'all recognize my name from some of the emails that have been sent out regarding placements. Any information that you need regarding placements or placements that have opportunities remotely, as we're doing service learning remotely, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'm also coordinating this video slides that we have for you all today. So I hope you're ready, and I'm gonna pass it over to, I see Pamela Motoike.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Pam Motoike, and I'm a faculty member in the Service Learning Institute. I teach SL 210, and many of my students are here today, and I also teach an upper division class 491. And in terms of remote service, I feel like service, we had some struggles last semester in getting people into their remote service placements, but once they got in there, they had really great experiences. And so I'm hoping that this process is going to be smoother this semester. We have lots of exciting opportunities for you. And I think I saw Tyler here. I'm going to pass it to Tyler.
Yeah. Hi, y'all. So I'm Tyler. I'm a faculty in the Service Learning Institute as well. I'm teaching an upper division SL 394, which is Service and Social Justice. And then I'm teaching 2 sections of the lower division SL 210, which is a civics course. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here and hear from folks and get this process started. I know last semester, like Pam said, was a little bit bumpy, but we got it done, and just hoping for a couple less bumps this semester and some great experiences. So yeah, we just ended our 10 o'clock class a little early, so I should have most of those students in this meeting today. So at least hi to all of y'all who are here. But yeah, nice to see everybody's face. Looking forward to this semester.
Welcome. Thank you. Are there any other service learning staff or faculty on the call? quickly introduce themselves.
I see Cassandra Eccles.
Go for it, Cassandra.
I am. Thanks, Renee. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Cassandra Eccles, and I'm service learning faculty in the School of Computing and Design. My class is Race, Gender, and Class in the Digital World. And so I work with our partners on any design or computer science projects that they may need help with. I've seen quite a few familiar people in here, so hi, and thank you for coming, and thanks.
Great, thank you. I see Mackenzie, one of our student assistants, is on. Mackenzie, could you quick introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Yeah,
Thanks.
like she said, I'm Mackenzie. I'm a student assistant at the SLI, so I'm just kind of here for any students that need help, as well as any community partners or faculty. So yeah, if you need help, just feel free to contact me, and I'll try to help however I can.
Great, thank you. As we move into the semester and we start offering our drop-in support hours, you'll see Renee and you'll see Mackenzie and you'll see myself probably the most. Are there other SLI faculty or staff on the call that can introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Michelle Lewis. I'm homeschooling, so I have to have my video off right now.
No problem.
But I teach in the social behavioral science department, and in terms of service learning, I teach a class called Anthropology of Education. And looking forward to learning about our opportunities this semester, given that it's remote. Thank you.
Great. Do we have any student leaders on this call? Oh yeah, Terrence.
One more.
Yes.
Hi, Andrea. I'm Terrence Farrell over in music and performing arts, and ours is on community involvement. So community arts projects, things of that sort.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Especially do we have any student leaders on? And we know people are in classes right now. It's a busy time, so perhaps not. All right, well, if not, we'll go ahead and move forward. And we do have a slide presentation. While Renee is pulling that up, let me just say I tend to jump right into business, but I do want to say that it's always important that we, kind of take a moment, just pause and think about the fact of like what we've all been going through in terms of surviving COVID-19. Hopefully everyone is healthy and well. Also, in the spirit of service and social justice and the Service Learning Institute, we also like to be mindful of our past. And so wherever you are, whether you're in the snowy Northeast right now, or Midwest, or here on the peninsula, think about the fact that you're probably standing on land. You are standing on land inhabited by Indigenous people. Many of the tribes no longer with us. So if you could take a moment and think about that, as well as moving forward, the history of this happens to be the 61st or 60th anniversary of what college students have done that brought us to a place like this, a Service Learning Institute. This is the 60th anniversary of the early sit-ins to desegregate lunch counters in the South, in North Carolina, done by college students. So think about that as you think about how you might serve, especially given the fact that your service really does have an impact, and you just never know how big that impact might be. So we've already launched into our agenda and done some introductions. So let's talk about, if you want to go to the next slide, and again, a little information about who you'll contact. But I wanted to share a little bit about examples of remote service projects. And so, just because you're not serving in person with someone, don't discount the impact that you might have. And so I wanted to review a couple of examples of what's possible. So for starters, when we talk about remote service, we're talking about online or phone outreach, as well as interaction with others. So you might be a tutor, tutoring K-12 students, tutoring or working with an after-school program, perhaps preparing or facilitating online activities for youth. You might interact with or provide support to adults. An example, working with our Central Coast Citizenship Project or a similar organization near you, helping immigrants prepare for the US citizenship exam. Or you might help adults by just doing phone outreach about services. And we have a new partner coming on board, Social Bridges, that allows you to do just that through calling throughout the state of California. As well as fundraising. Lots of our nonprofits really need help with fundraising, whether it's calling supportive donors or businesses about their fundraising needs, using social media to help boost a nonprofit's website or presence. So that kind of project. You might also create educational or marketing materials, lesson plan, hyperdocs, what we refer to as hyperdocs that can be used by teachers or students, as well as social media or web or videos for fundraising. And so if you go to the next slide, on the next slide, here are some examples. So this is something that was created in the fall by a student. It's a game board. It's an interactive game board teaching students about how carbon footprints impact the earth. And if you were to click on any of the board panels in this particular game board, it would take you to further educational links about, for example, how to change the law through a democratic process. Next slide. And so I thought the game was like a really cool example. Another example, this was created by student Madison Frazier last fall, an instructional PowerPoint also for students. And we just play a little bit, we won't play all of it. Oh, but I guess because we're not sharing computer sound, you probably are not hearing it. We'll just go on to the next example, that's okay.
Collide with each other.
Oh, there you go.
How that affects their energy. Before we get into our activity for today, we're gonna do a quick review of last week's video. Last week, we learned that you give an object more energy when you use more force. We used the example of rubbing our hands together and feeling them become warmer the faster we rub them together. We also learned that an object with more mass will have more energy than an object with less mass when they're at the same speed. This week,
okay, you can go ahead and pause it. So that's an example, and what's really cool about this video, and there's a document of other science projects where many students did this kind of a project, some with videos that they made, some without. But what's cool about this video is that you'll notice, Madison really made the best of a not so great situation. She ends up videotaping in her backyard. If you were to watch further, there's an experiment where she's rolling balls back and forth. So she gets to be outside and have fun and tape herself while also sharing an instructional piece with children. If you go back, another example of remote service. So let's say I don't want anybody on this call to be thinking nervously, wait, I have to come up with a fantastic, well-edited video with transitions for remote service. No, there's lots of things you can do that really make an impact. So another example is the Central Coast Citizen Project, which has been going strong and kept going strong through COVID, through shelter in place. They're now providing opportunities for you to work with local immigrants who are preparing for the US citizenship exam, and you'll just be doing that tutoring via Zoom. They had service learners last semester, it was very successful, and they plan on having service learners again this spring. So tutoring, the things that you would do on a site are still possible to do. This time we're just doing them, as we all know, via a screen. Next slide. Other examples, the Monterey Peninsula Regional Park District is always in need of educational posters that are spread throughout the parks throughout the state. And so these are two examples of educational posters created by students last fall that appear in two different parks. I'm not remembering their name. And if you notice on the bottom, the things that you create, your community partners love to give you credit for that. And this is all part of your portfolio that you might use throughout your, as you start your career. Next slide. So those are just some examples of what's possible. And again, you can tutor people, young or old, or connect with people via phone or computer. You can also do behind the scenes work, such as social media development or web development or phone outreach work. So a little bit in terms of what's possible and what's not. Actually, if you could, run back to the last slide. Just as a reminder, you'll see that image with the mask up all over the place, serving remotely in 2021. All service is remote. It's either via phone or computer. Mostly it's usually a mix or a hybrid. There is no in-person service. The service learning hour requirement is 25 to 30 hours. It depends on your course. You'll want to check with your instructor or check your syllabus for that. If you are doing phone service, you're in your guidelines, when you register your service, you'll see some guidelines for remote service, and it asks that you use an online app to make calls, not your personal cell phone. And so you're going to be making, if you are doing phone work, more than likely you're still going to be calling through Zoom or through Google or some kind of phone app. You don't want to use your personal cell phone for your own privacy reasons. There is one exception and one exception only to remote service, and that's if you're currently employed at the site and I want to emphasize this, and your professor approves that what you're doing meets service outcomes. So this is a far-fetched example, but let's just say you're working for Bed Bath & Beyond and you're thinking, well, I work there and it seems like I'm really helpful. Does that count as a service learning? You know, you would talk with your professor about that, and more than likely, no, that's not service, unless Bed Bath & Beyond has put you in charge of some kind of special outreach to help communities in need or help support healthcare workers, something like that. So again, that's the only exception to remote service. If you are employed, if you happen to be employed at a nonprofit and are doing something that fits within the service learning outcomes. Let me pause there and ask if anyone, Seth, if there's anything you want to add, or if anyone has a question or wants to jump in. If no questions so far, next slide. Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry. I have a question.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask about like the museum or the art. Like, is there a certain number of spots available for working with these different organizations, or is it kind of just on a first come first serve, one person per organization?
It varies by organization. That's a great question. So actually, let's go back to the PowerPoint, because then I'll talk a little bit more about offerings. But it really does depend. It's first come, first serve. It's all of what you said. It's first come, first serve. And depending on the organization, some organizations have more service opportunities than others. There's basically 4 types of remote service if you're a service learner that you can consider doing. One is serving with our existing community partners, and that's where we suggest that you start first. We do have a list, and you'll see this list shortly in terms of where you can find it. We have a list of Spring 21 remote service opportunities, and that's where you can go to find current Monterey Peninsula, usually, although there are some outside of the peninsula partners who we've had direct contact with, have worked with service learners in the past remotely, as in last fall, and are taking service learners again this semester. So that's one type of remote service, is working with the partners that we currently have. And one thing I want to point out, you're going to use this spreadsheet first instead of browsing MySLP, because of the fact that many, many, many nonprofits are not offering remote service. So if you were to look at our spreadsheet, you'll see those partners that have confirmed that they are. And you'll want to check this regularly so that you can see new videos. We also have community partner videos where partners, again, are introducing themselves via Flipgrid. You can click on the video and see who they are and what they have to offer. And this particular list is organized by topic. Another type of remote service is you could identify a service site near you. So let's say you are all the way across the country, or down south, or in Arizona, and you are near a nonprofit you're near your own local library that is looking for remote tutors. You are welcome to serve with a nonprofit that is located near to you, but you want to keep in mind that it is remote only. So if you get that call from your local, or if you were to call or email your local library and they were to say, great, we want you to come over on Saturdays and hand out books that have been checked out. You're not allowed to do that. That's the type of service you can't do because you were on site. But if they were to say, hey, we'd like you to help us keep up our database of new books that have come in for checking out, that's a perfect remote project that you could do with your library.
Andrea, could I just add there,
Please,
Seth, that even if you are across the country somewhere, you can still serve with our local partners remotely, right? So don't feel like if you're not local, you can't serve locally here in Monterey. You absolutely can. But if there is a connection, if there's an opportunity, if there's an organization that you feel is appropriate and where there's a meaningful way for you to contribute to your community wherever you are living, that's absolutely possible through this short-term agreement. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that and emphasizing that. And we kind of list this in order of, I don't want to say ideal service, but if you were on campus, you would be connecting with our local partners. And so I really appreciate Seth's reminder that one of the beauties of being remote is that because we are remote, you can serve anywhere. So if, regardless of where you are, an opportunity for you to get to know organizations on the peninsula is to serve with one of these organizations that's on the Spring 21 remote list. I'll show you in a minute. So short-term agreements are possible. We also have, it's also possible to serve through what are known as virtual volunteer hubs. As you can imagine, nonprofits all over the country and organizations that help organize nonprofits have, spun on a dime and created ways for people to serve throughout the country online. So that's another way that you might serve. And then last but not least, service at home. We did have a fair amount of students who served at home. They served by helping to tutor that second grade brother or niece or nephew that is home while parents are out and is stuck on a computer and trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do with this lesson plan that a teacher has given me? So you could serve at home by tutoring someone in your home or by assisting someone in your home. The key with service at home is that it is also remote and that it's remote only. You need to be indoors at your site or assisting someone that you live with. And in these cases, you'll be your own site supervisor, but we'll get into that later. Next slide. Going back into, in terms of types of ways that you can interact, let's say that you do decide to do K-12 tutoring, that there is a way that you can tutor minors, people under 18, but it is a process because there are liability issues involved. And so because it is a process, you have to start early and get placed early. And so if you're interested in tutoring someone in the K-12 system, you need to register for that process by February 12th, and you need to complete some pre-service training. And the orientation about all of this happens today at noon and then again at 2. So just a reminder. And also it's been in the chat, this session is being recorded and the PowerPoint will be put up. Seth, did you want to say anything else about?
Just to say that you can, folks can sign up right now and we'll get you registered and into the pre-service Canvas course. You don't have to come to the orientation, but we'll explain everything today at noon and then again at 2. But we already have over 200 students who've signed up for that. And we're excited about that. Last semester, we had over 300 students placed with Monterey County K-12 schools. And we're thinking we'll have at least 300, if not 400 this semester. So we really want to encourage you to start early and get placed early, just because there are a number of risk management hurdles, the training, the live scan clearance that need to happen before you're able to work remotely with K-12 youth. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Next slide. Okay. So here we are in terms of steps to service learning, and we're into our first week. And we've talked a lot about different types of service, and I promise I will go back to show you where you're going to find that list of possible partners and all of that kind of stuff. But I wanted to pause for a minute to just talk about the steps to service learning and what you'll be doing over the next 14 weeks, with an emphasis of this week, well, last week, this week, and probably for many of you, much of next week will be a time in which you're really reaching out and talking to partners to try to find a service learning partner. So that's what's happening. Again, maybe happened for some of you last week, as soon as you started your first week of classes, certainly this week with Community Partner Outreach Week. And again, next week, it is very much an ongoing process, but the goal is, next slide. One goal is, you could go to the next slide, is, you know, by next week, you want to have narrowed down your partners. And by the third or fourth week, you're starting to think about, well, you've narrowed down a partner and you're ready to register your site on what we refer to as MySLP or S4. It's a database where you register your service. What you see here on the screen is a draft of a worksheet of a learning agreement that's optional, that we encourage you to fill out, also as a way of getting all your information together before you actually register. Next slide. So again, by weeks, between weeks 3 and 5, so we're talking about next week and over the about 2 weeks after that, you're really looking for a site, and then you're registered. And when you register, you'll be setting up a time log. All of our forms are online. So if you happen to be on this call and you've done service learning before and you remember all the paper, all that's gone away. Everything is online. The bulk of your service is happening between weeks 4 and weeks 13 or so. And towards the end of the semester, and again, we're talking about towards the last day of classes, May 14th, that's when your service should be wrapping up. But you'll want to talk with your professor specifically, as well as your partner, because there may be a project that you're going to do a little bit later, or you might end up stopping a little bit sooner. So, but most people are wrapping up their service by weeks 12 to 14. At the end of the semester, you will hear from us again in terms of, there's an evaluation that we ask you to fill out that allows you to give us feedback about your service learning experience. Next slide. So this week, it's all about having conversations, you know, meeting community partners. I'm sure many of you are having partners visit your classes. We are having partners come tomorrow and Wednesday, morning and afternoon, to talk about their service opportunities, and the schedule is on the website. Also review that in a second. But again, it's about having conversations. You don't want to register for a site until you've actually talked to your community partner as well as your professor to find out and to confirm that what you have in mind and what the partner has in mind is suitable service that meets your service learning course outcomes. So again, this week is about having those conversations, whether it's part of our Zoom events or afterwards, online, phone, or via Zoom or via phone. Next slide. So where are you going to find all this information? Basically, everything that you'll need to find partners, especially local partners, will be on the service learning website. And so if you were to go to the next slide, here's just an image of the student page. And a lot of what I've said also appears on our webpage, including that reminder of please don't just register for a site until you've had that conversation. Next slide. You'll also see, if you scroll down, a link to our resources. And so here's where you're going to start to see, here's where you're going to look to find opportunities that are available. So if you were to click on the Spring 21 remote service opportunities, and if you go to the next slide, I think I have a shot of that. Yeah. So if you were to click on that link, it takes you to the list of our organizations in alphabetical order, And this is just a straight alphabetical list. And it includes, if you were to look at the entire spreadsheet, you'll see what they have, what they need you to do. And further down on the end of the spreadsheet includes how many students they need to answer that question of, are partners taking only one student? So it really does depend. Go ahead and go to the next slide. You'll notice that you'll want to check the spreadsheet periodically because we will be adding new opportunities as they come in. And so this one, which is brand new, called the Social Bridging Project, it's out of California's Office of Emergency Services. And what they do is they need people to make calls about disaster readiness as well as wellness checks to people throughout the state of California. It's a great opportunity to just basically learn the art of interviewing and phone banking. You will be trained, you'll be given a script, and this is set up so that, again, out front, they're not expecting you to use your own phone. You'll be using a computer app. Noticing a question on the chat. When contacting community partners that are included on the Google spreadsheet, should we contact them and to notify that we're interested, or is there an application or resume? That's a really great question, and that's why you want to take a look at that spreadsheet. Depending on the partner, some partners will say, yes, we do have a volunteer application that we want you to fill out in addition to any other paperwork you're doing for the Service Learning Institute or for your faculty. So the first step is you're going to look on that spreadsheet, look for the email address of the partner. Some include a phone, but most include email. And email is better because that way you've got, a written record of your correspondence. And then you're just going to send them an email introducing yourself, letting them know that you're interested in serving. If you've even taken a minute to go to their website and see what they do, you might add a little more detail about the type of service you're interested in. If for example, if you know that you'd like to tutor, but you could also keep it broad. I just know that I like to work with young people. So you'd start by sending that email initially. And in your email, you might also ask, is there anything else I need to do? But the partner will let you know. Next slide. So here's an example of another link that you'll see on the student page, and it's of the remote service hubs or the virtual volunteer hubs that I talked about a little bit sooner. And these are organized by kind of topic area. And the one thing that you'll just want to know when you look at any of these sites, and if you click on the next slide, I think I have an example here. So let's say if you were to go to Volunteer Match, and Volunteer Match is national. They have listings of ways that you might volunteer all across the country in all kinds of ways. And it's categorized by health, education, so it's categorized by topic. But when you are looking at the virtual service site hubs, you want to keep in mind that you'll be taking multiple steps in order to register. So for example, Volunteer Match has this really cool opportunity right now called the Virtual Diversity Book Club, where you're invited to, as your service, you would host a virtual book club about textbooks, narratives around underrepresented groups. They'll help you organize it, but you would, and they even have possible texts that you can select. But if you wanted to do that, you would first go to Volunteer Match. You then, as the arrow points to, you have to click on the topic that you're interested in, which is the Diversity Book Club. Then that takes you to another description. And then it ultimately takes you to the organization that really hosts that particular project. So there's lots of great things on the Virtual Diversity Book Club, but just keep in mind that you'll probably need to click on multiple links, and you definitely want to read carefully to make sure that you're connecting with the project that you'd like to connect with. Next slide. The other link that is on the student page is a link to the video introductions from our community partners. And our community partners have taken the time to introduce themselves and to talk a little bit about the types of projects that they have available this spring. It's organized by these themes, you know, from after school youth and libraries to social services and community advocacy. So you'll just scroll down and you can, you know, the videos are all of 90 seconds. So you can watch, you know, many of them to get an idea of what's available and the variety of what's available. Next slide. And that's just, you know, just part of what you'll see. Next slide. And then last but not least, this is the schedule of a Community Partner Outreach Week. And so today's focus was really about welcoming you as service learners, especially those of you that are new, that might be transferring in, just to give you an overview of what this is all about, how to find partners. And today's session, or after this session at noon and at 2, we have the K-12 orientation. So if you are even remotely interested in tutoring a student in a school system, you'll want to come to this orientation just to find out how to get started. We will be recording this as well as all of the Community Partner Outreach Zoom sessions this week. So if you have fellow classmates that have missed this, you can let them know that if they check back on the webpage, these links will be replaced with links to the video session. For tomorrow, we have our science and environmental service opportunities. That's happening at 10:30 to 11:30. And then at noon, we have our youth and arts service opportunities. So you'll want to come back tomorrow if you're interested in science or environmental health service, or if you're interested in connecting with students in those areas. You'll want to come back at noon tomorrow if you're interested in youth and arts service opportunities. And then on Wednesday, we have youth, arts, and social service advocacy opportunities. Actually, I'm realizing this is not a correct slide. If you go to our website, because we do have an extra session planned on Wednesday. On Thursday and Friday, we also have drop-in hours. So I know we're throwing a lot of information at you today, this afternoon, throughout the week. So if you have questions, you can always come back on Thursday and Friday at noon to drop in and ask more detailed questions about where you might find a placement. So with that, let me stop here and ask if there are any questions. And also, Renee, if you could bring up the service learning website, and that way if there's any questions where it just is easier to point and click and answer, we can do it that way. So any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Yeah, jump in. Thank you.
So I did hear that we will need to do like a background check. How will that process sort of happen?
Does a K-12 rep want to jump in on that? Thank you.
So each school district has a slightly different process. And we're working with 10 different school districts throughout Monterey County. So once you've gone through and completed the pre-service training on Canvas, you'll then be asked to complete a Google form, which tells us your interests and preferences for placement. And once we see that, we'll then assign you to one of the 10 partner districts that we work with. At that point, you'll get a nice clear set of directions about the steps to go through and have your background check through a live scan process. So that depends on the district. Some districts have you come down to their office. Some districts have you go to a very specific post office box store. Others don't care and will reimburse you if you have to pay that fee. And finally, if your district does not cover those costs, the Service Learning Institute, CSUMB, will cover that. And there's a process in terms of how to go and request a reimbursement for the cost. But you would have to put out that cost initially. It's about $60.
A related,
all that at the K-12 orientation today.
Related.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, related school question. If a student wants to serve at a school that's not local, that's not part of our program.
Once you go through the process, the pre-service training, and you apply to then tell us your preference, there's an opportunity for you to say, I'd like to serve in a school outside of Monterey County in a district that I'm familiar with, in which case you will go ahead and complete the short-term agreement form like anyone else will complete working with partners that aren't part of our network.
There's a question about opportunities really related to the health and medical field. I'm only aware of 2 at the time, and one, it's not obvious to you because it's with the Watsonville Public Water Conservation, and I'm not even getting that title right, but they had they were looking for students interested in helping with, a safe water campaign that had to do with public health. Also, Monterey County Oral Health Program has been a partner and is taking service learners. But that said, if you're someone on this call that's interested in public health education, and let's say if you happen to know you're interested in public health education as it relates to childhood obesity prevention or diabetes, one way to think about it is to approach organizations that work with the populations you're interested in and offer your topic as an interest. Like, let them know that you're interested in a public health topic as it relates to working with youth or working with farm workers. That might be a way that you can do the kind of work you're interested in. But as far as direct placements, service placements with more public health offices, I'm only aware of 2 right now, but others may come on board, and I'll certainly put the word out. Any other questions? So we do have community partners on this call. And so since we have a few minutes left, and again, many of these partners hopefully will be returning during the topic days, but is there any community partner that would like to introduce him or herself or themselves, especially if you are not going to be part of any of the sessions later in the week?
Yeah, this is Terry Segrist from the City of Marina.
Hi.
And how are you? And we will continue our partnership, and it's been a pleasure to work with CSUMB students as you assist us with online types of activities for our youth. We have opportunities there, and we can work with you on helping us with virtual programming videos and other opportunities that are available. And we, again, look forward to our continued partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, long-term partner. Other community partners, are there other community partners on the call? And unfortunately, I can't necessarily tell who you are just by the name. So if you're a community partner on the call that would like to introduce yourself. And if not, any other questions before we close this session a few minutes early, and then you'll, for those of you that are interested, can come back at noon or 2. Any other questions?
I have a question. Oh, no, go ahead. Okay. So for some of them, like the descriptions, it'll say like that they want somebody who does like different, like it'll be like, oh, we want 3 volunteers. And there's like more than one, I guess like job title. So can you, like in the email to them, can you specify like what you're interested in within that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's often really helpful for the community partner. So keep in mind that, you know, there are many service learners who will be contacting partners all of this week and next week. And so I think the earlier question of, is it first come, first serve? It very much is. And often what will help is to, in your email, rather than just say, you know, hi, my name is, I'm a service learner, what do you have to offer? If you can say a little bit more about what you're interested in, that definitely helps.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can apply to more than one. Oh, and if you also see more than one email contact, I would email both individuals.
So if you had a community partner, what I would say, I mean, if you had a community partner, would you just send like an agreement form or to them or something like that?
So do you already have a community partner in mind? Like if you already talked to someone that said, great, this is a go, we're ready to start?
I haven't talked to them yet, but I haven't talked to them yet, but I want to email them like today or something like that.
Great. Yeah. So that would be your next step would be to email them today and say, hi, you know, my name is JP, and maybe tell them what your service learning class is or what you're interested in doing. It sounds like if you've got a partner in mind, you've got a partner in mind for a reason. You know, they're doing something you're interested in. So you
send in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so go ahead and send an email introduction, let them know that you're interested in being a service learner for 25 to 30 hours. You want to check with your course syllabus and professor to make sure how many hours you're doing, and let the partner know that you're interested in serving with them for 25 hours. And then what would be your next steps? Because that's when they're going to let you know either, you know, there's a orientation that we'd like you to do, or they'll let you know if there's any particular next steps. If is this a partner that is already part of the CSUMB list? Is it somebody that was on that list that I talked about?
Yes.
Okay, so they might say, great, you know, your next step is to go ahead and register on MySLP, which is another workshop, but we can show you a little bit of what that looks like. But yeah, once you've got a confirmation from your partner, and you've also and you've run that by your professor. So I can't emphasize that enough. You're having two conversations. You're talking to a community partner and asking them what's available and hopefully confirming something. But then you're also talking with your professor and saying, you know, hey, I've spoken to local nonprofit that works with youth, and we're going to be doing tutoring online, although I'm going to be taking lunches to them. Is that okay? And that's when your professor is going to say the tutoring is great, the taking lunches is not okay. So that's why you want to have that conversation. And then when you're done with that, your next step will be to register on MySLP.
And if it's not a community partner?
If they are not a community partner, you're going to be using what is referred to as a short-term agreement so that you can serve with them. And so I think we'll have time. Actually, Renee, if you could go to the service learning, you know, website and share your screen and scroll down where it says steps to service learning, then we can kind of show that piece. Any other questions, especially about finding a partner or types of partnerships or types of service projects? Oh yeah, I saw a question about, were there opportunities to assist teachers? Yes, there are. And so you could also, if you didn't want to go through all the background check, but also wanted to work with teachers directly, we do have an ALISAL teachers project. So here, Renee's on the service learning website, and go ahead and scroll down a little bit more, keep going. Just want to, if you click on where it says spreadsheet, I just want to pull up the spreadsheet again live. This time live. And you'll notice I am starting to link the videos to the titles. They're not all there. Many are not there yet, but they will be. So if you scroll down, I know that there was something about teachers, working with teachers. Okay, service learning for, okay, here it is, service learning for science teachers. If you can see that, yeah. So that's one of the teacher only projects that we have, where you could work with science teachers to create digital resources similar to what I showed earlier. And if you were to choose this option, then you would not be going through the K-12 orientation or background check. And go ahead and click back. And if you keep scrolling down, you're going to go down a while. Okay, steps to service learning. Yeah, if you click on where it says steps to service learning further up, yeah, it's closed. It's right under, it's above attention. Yeah, okay. So this is the week where we're identifying a partner. If you click on where it says step 2, yeah, if you open all of this, because someone put in the chat, where do I find that draft worksheet? If you click on this link, you'll find it there. So this is a draft worksheet that, again, it's optional. Your professor may not require you to fill it out, but we think it's a good idea for you to fill it out because this is what your learning agreement looks like. It gives you all the information that you need about do's and don'ts for remote service. But if you scroll back up to the top, believe it or not, the information that sometimes holds up a learning agreement is a misspelled or incorrect email, especially when it comes to your service learning site or the site contact name. So that's why we suggest that you do a draft worksheet ahead of time, just so you to make sure that you've got everybody's emails and numbers straight. Also, so that you're familiar with the site so that when you go online and look at it, it's that much easier. One of the most important questions that you're going to check on is whether or not your agreement is a short-term agreement. So JP, you asked, what if I were to pick a partner that is not a CSUMB partner? You're going to do what is known as a short-term agreement. That's also true for those of you that might be across the country and want to do a remote service project with your Boys and Girls Club right in your own backyard. They're not our partner, so you're going to do a short-term agreement. So this box right here often is one of the boxes that people will miss or fill it, not miss it, but fill it out in a hurry. So again, that's why we say take a look at this draft worksheet, get your information together so that when you register online, you're only doing it once. I would say the other thing to keep in mind is that these learning agreements, when they're online, they can't be edited. So once you take the time to fill it all out, if there is an error and the form ends up going nowhere, more than likely, we're going to have to ask you to fill it out all over again. So another reason why to do a draft. Go ahead and click back. And if we go back down to steps to service learning. Okay, so register your site on MySLP. So JP and others might be ready to go right into this. And again, we will have drop-in hours this Thursday and Friday, but then starting the week of February 8th, we will have regular drop-in hours for students on Tuesdays and Fridays. So you can come Tuesdays at noon or Fridays at 2 to get help as you're registering. But there's also information right here. So you're going to log into your dashboard. And I know we're just like 2 minutes to 12, so I don't want to go into all of the details. If anybody wants to just stay for a few minutes, who's ready to register right now, we could walk through this with you. But this area here, and we will, I think there's some things missing. We'll make sure that all the videos are up and loaded because we have videos as well as PDFs on how to create your, how to access, register your site, how to create your time log, as well as how to create a short-term agreement.